First major sin goes to the fact that AEW had gone as far as to delete a video from YouTube for posting a single bit of criticism about them, even if there's no video or audio from AEW in said video. In other words, enjoy this video while you still can because it's about to be deleted. YOLO! In 2018, Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks made a bet that they could sell out a 10,000-seat arena without being part of WWE, which turned into the All-In event. I won't lie, I actually praised that AEW was formed based off the success of that one event thanks to a tweet on the internet. So let's start over and get to the real criticism. Cody Rhodes tried to establish himself as the top face of AEW, which sadly backfired because the fans either wanted him to turn heel or stop going overboard with certain things. Like the time he threw himself into a flaming table and somehow won the match afterward, or the time he got kinky with MJF during their feud. AEW was formed in 2019, which not only started the brand new wrestling company, but also caused fans worldwide to suddenly jump the gun and claim that they were going to put WWE out of business simply for existing. Some going as far as to say WWE was in major trouble. Nearly 4 years later, where's the trouble? Stuck in traffic? Competition is alright, as has been shown in the years of WWF feuding with WCW and competing head-to-head. So a lot of people actually compared AEW going head-to-head with NXT to that very feud itself. Only difference is the original war actually led somewhere. AEW won in viewership compared to NXT, and nearly every week they went head-to-head. Kudos to them on that. However, NXT is indeed WWE's development brand and not on the level of Raw or SmackDown, despite even Triple H himself stating that it's not a development brand. If AEW went head-to-head with Raw or SmackDown, then we can talk about legitimate competition. And also, there never truly was a WWE versus AEW war like back in the days of WCW. The only war that's existing are between the WWE diehards and the AEW diehards on social media who would always make comparisons about ratings, matches, demographics, and always hoping that one company will go out of business. One of AEW's biggest flaws is the constant shots taken at WWE on their programming, whether it be in a joke, a reference, or direct name dropping, in the hopes that they could be taken seriously as competition. And it's gotten to the point where even their biggest diehard fans are rolling their eyes saying, "Oh god, another one?" Also, I find it hilarious that Triple H once made a joke about AEW in 2019, where he messed around and said that Vince McMahon would buy that pissant company. Nearly 4 years later, and fans still hold a grudge against that one singular reference. Meanwhile, they defend the thousands and thousands and thousands of shots at WWE as retaliation toward that one single comment. That shows less of AEW being competition and more of the fan base being desperate and extremely sensitive attention seekers. AEW was created by Tony Khan and the Elite with the hopes of making the wrestling company a more sports-based product, which means little to no backstage choreographed segments, less comical things, and more serious sports-based action. So then they have backstage choreographed segments, comical things, less serious sports-based action, and Orange Cassidy. AEW had a motive that wins and losses matter to your ranking so that they can be more like other sports. That sounds cool on paper, but less when you realize that AEW is still like every other wrestling promotion, with predetermined results and scripted finishes. Like there's somebody on that roster destined to be 0-50 for the rest of their career because the script said so. Also, to become the #1 contender for a championship, you must have a high rank in the win-loss records. Yet AEW still has tournaments and battle royals to determine #1 contenders anyway, which completely destroys the purpose of that. You can be in like 25th place on the ranks, but win one single battle royal and get shot right to the first place because that's how it works apparently. And even when some people are in first place on the ranks, AEW still continues to ignore that and allow other wrestlers with lower ranks to take the #1 contender spot. Like when FTR was #1 on the rankings for so long in 2022, but were not even considered to be challengers for the tag team titles until way much later when the rankings rightfully shut down. Probably because of the 50 tag team titles they already possessed. In 2021, CM Punk made his debut in AEW as well as his return to professional wrestling in general. Now, if I go through the problems he caused, I'd have to make an entire separate video. Things started off good with Punk, up until he was practically shoved into the top title scene, and even went as far as to refuse to lose to Adam Page, which shows that Tony Khan has no true leadership skills when he should be saying, "I'm in charge, not you, now sit down." The entire post-all-out press conference was the prime example of AEW exposing their lack of leadership. Whether it was CM Punk randomly dissing anyone after winning the top prize in his hometown, the Elite causing mayhem backstage, or Tony Khan letting everything happen and only taking action when he got exposed for being a fan first and businessman second, which is the wrong way to go in a pro wrestling company. That's 100 sins, by the way. Tony Khan has also been known to either weird people out, show lack of leadership, or get extremely sensitive over the smallest of things. Whether that be the inability to take constructive criticism from fans on the internet, or that one time where WWE had their Clash at the Castle and Worlds Collide events on the same weekend as All Out. He claims he's not going to stand there and take this fucking shit, to which he stands around and takes that fucking shit afterwards. Also, if I were Tony Khan, I'd at least be breathing a sigh of relief that WWE didn't choose to host their pay-per-views head-to-head with mine. as NXT Worlds Collide took place several hours before All Out began and did not affect the pay-per-view buy rates like some idiots claim it did. It's called good business. AEW has 4 pay-per-views on their yearly calendars, which is honestly cool because it makes things more exciting when it happens quarterly. However, AEW suffers from being a procrastinator as they don't really start building up to their pay-per-view events until 3 weeks before the air date, and that's with 3 to 4 months of space and time to build it up. Also, on some occasions, there's little to no build-up whatsoever, and some matches are placed in for the sake of existing. Take All Out in 2022, for example, which went from 6 official matches to 15 in less than a week. And even a shitload of those matches had to be rushed because of a 4-hour time constraint. Speaking of All Out, another annoying trend is AEW constantly putting that pay-per-view at the same venue in Hoffman Estates, Illinois, all because it's the home of the All In event. Historic as it is, it gets annoying when the Chicago area gets practically everything while everywhere else mostly gets the middle finger. It's always cool to see Sting, and it's unfortunate that his short WWE run didn't go as we had hoped. However, to have him be used for practically every pay-per-view and tag team action gets pretty stale, mostly because it's a massive roster and a lot of the spots should go to the wrestlers you're actually trying to elevate. Thankfully, this isn't as bad as Goldberg trying to be a champion, but it's more or less the same match with Sting again and again. AEW has 2 YouTube shows called Dark and Dark Elevation, where wrestlers on a completely bloated roster compete to elevate their characters' status with the fans and showcase their wrestling performances. For the majority of the time, the wrestlers compete for 5 minutes or less, usually squash their opponents, and the fans have little to no memory of that because they're in line at concessions. 15 to 20 matches in a 1-hour period most of the time. AEW had a collaboration deal with Impact Wrestling in 2021, and many fans hoped that this would elevate not only AEW, but Impact as well. The only thing that happened was AEW being elevated while Impact Wrestling was made to look like a punk-ass bitch who can hang with the top guys. And then there was AEW acquiring the rights to the dying Ring of Honor. While they did manage to save the company from falling into obscurity faster than Ric Flair's last match, they also suffered from turning AEW Dynamite or Rampage into a Ring of Honor show, since they didn't have anywhere to put Ring of Honor itself. They bought the rights and then busted their nuts all over the place. Guarantee everybody thought that I was going to tear AEW a new asshole all because their over abuse of the copyright system made me choose to remove the AEW Sins on my channel. But I'm being perfectly honest. They got a lot of problems, yet they're still technically a work in progress with many, many memorable moments. I can't take that all away. Hell, we'll even remove 50 sins because they managed to entertain so many in under 4 years.